afternoon, everybody. My name is Domenico Boyagian. I'm music director of Cleveland Opera Theater. Welcome to our Opera 101 daily appointment. This is, again, Maestro's Corner, where I have a lot of fun with a lot of guests, and I like to talk. So this is the perfect venue for me to let out. And today we have a returning guest, a good friend, a wonderful musician, conductor Anthony Barrese, artistic director of Opera Southwest and music director of Opera Delaware. Benvenuto, Maestro.
Grazie.
So today we kick off the celebration of another composer, bravissimo. Last month was Giuseppe Verdi. And this month, as Maestro is showing us, is Maestro Rossini, Gioacchino Rossini, with a little hat on, because today we decide that it's his celebration. I love your shirt. I absolutely love it.
This was the Opera Delaware. It was a centenary year for Rossini. I don't remember which one, but yeah, we did Semiramide and Cenerentola.
Oh, beautiful. Two incredible pieces. Actually, we can talk about them a little bit.
Yes.
So for today's Master's Corner, I would like to do something a little bit different. Okay. Usually we get to know the person and their experiences, but today I would actually like to talk about the composer with the perspective of someone else. You hear me talk about things too. Sure. But I would like your opinion, Tony, and your experience with this incredible composer. In fact, at the end of the month, we are going to do something very special. I don't think I have permission to mention what it is that we are doing, but it has to do with the Barber of Seville, Barbiere di Siviglia.
Wonderful.
And why don't we start talking about that? You and I did it together in the sense that I played for you.
Yes.
You were conducting.
Yes. In fact, I think when you auditioned for me, you came over to my apartment. Heather Johnson told me about you. You drove, I believe you drove from Cleveland to Chicago. You came upstairs. I think it was the middle of the winter, or maybe it wasn't. You were in a suit. And we just played the finale of Barber of Seville, and I was like, all right, do you want the job?
But you know,
remember, that wasn't the first show you played. I mean, that was what you auditioned for me, but then
it was Italiana, right?
Italiani Nigeria.
Yeah, another Rossini. Yeah. Right. My funny story that I always like to, and then we talk about Rossini. The funniest story that I have is, for months and months, we've been talking and we've been speaking to each other in Italian. One day you hear me speak English with someone else and you come to me and goes, "Oh, you speak English too?" Yes.
You mean in rehearsal?
It was in rehearsal. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you didn't know English.
I know. Which is fair. Because we just started in Italian and right. You had no idea that I could speak English.
I was like, how is this guy going to get around in Albuquerque? No one speaks Italian.
Oh, I will always remember that.
That's funny.
So, Barbiere di Siviglia, Mr. Rossini became so popular at the age of, what was he, 21? Something like that, right?
I think he wrote it right before his 21st birthday. He was born because I think it premiered in January, and he was born in February. He's a leap year baby, so he was born February 29th. So I believe it was just shy of his 21st birthday.
And when I was 20, I wasn't doing anything like this. Okay.
I could be wrong. Now I'm thinking I'm wrong. I think he wrote Tancredi before he was 21. In any case, he was in his early 20s.
That's right. And I have to remind our audience that you are one of the experts of Rossini. So that's why you're here. And I'm looking forward to hearing everything you have to say. Probably we can't make it in 45 minutes if you have
to. But yeah.
So talk to me about Barbiere di Siviglia. I mean, I think it's safe to say that Rossini was one of our greatest composers that ever lived. But it's very interesting how his music is so simple, but not. It's so simple in a construction wise, harmonically. It's tonic dominant, tonic dominant, tonic dominant.
So I would say for anybody who thinks that his music is simple harmonically, that they should listen to the Paisiello Barbiere di Siviglia, which, I mean, that is like, there'll be an aria that is in B flat major, and it doesn't even modulate to the dominant. It just stays in B flat the entire time. Like, Paisiello is much more conservative and much more kind of less adventurous harmonically. And then if you add on top of that the fact that Rossini was a big fan of Haydn and Mozart, and he experimented with orchestration in a way that no other Italian really had done to that point. In fact, to the point where they called him Il Tedeschino, the little German, as a kind of a pejorative, meaning he was too Germanic in his
orchestration. I didn't know.
Yeah, that's what they called him, like in early reviews. But I think harmonically, he's compared to his contemporaries, he is very much more interesting. He's much more in the line of a Mozart than he is with a Paisiello.
I see. But it's deceivingly simple.
Deceiving. I will absolutely grant you that. Yeah.
Because it's impossible that a composer connects so much with people if it's too simple. You know.
Yes.
Why do you like conducting Rossini? I know why I like conducting Rossini. Why do you like conducting Rossini?
I think Rossini has the most infectious sense of rhythm before the 20th century of any composer that I can think of. His sense of rhythm is just, there's a propulsion, a driving factor in it that is so infectious. And I always think of the Italiani in Algeri Act 1 finale, and actually all the Rossini finales are this way. And I had a professor in college who described Rossini as wave form. He said, like, you just get this pitch of hysteria that you think cannot possibly get any more crazy, and then it kind of comes fresh on, and then we start it again. It's like a roller coaster that starts again and again, and it just keeps building and building and building by seemingly simple means. You know, like a couple instruments will start getting added, then the tessitura will get higher, and then the harmonic change will be quicker, and then more voices, and it just becomes insane. And almost every set piece of his has this, you know, what we call the Rossini crescendo, but you know, he kind of started it, and he has a sense of rhythm that is unequaled by anybody. And I also think that, you know, for everybody who loves Verdi, like, there just simply is no Verdi without a Rossini. There is no Verdi without Rossini. There is no, you know, you listen to sections of Guillaume Tell, and then you listen to Aida, and Verdi just took whole sections from it. I mean, he's the beginning of what we think of as the 19th century great Italian opera composers.
So what do you think what he was best at? Because after him, there is obviously there's a ton of other composers, but let's simplify it for today's sake. After him, there is Giuseppe Verdi, who is known for really knowing the human condition.
Yes.
After Verdi, there is Puccini, who has learned a ton from Verdi.
Yes, absolutely.
Who has learned, who can describe so well in his music. He knows people really well. He knows women really well, and how strong they are, and their strength. So, what does Rossini have? What is he describing so well? Is it only about rhythm, or is there anything else?
I think what Rossini has is a sense of a real understanding of music that Verdi, so even like someone like Verdi, who really struggled with counterpoint and struggled with sort of kind of the basics and the techniques of music, Rossini from a very early age, kind of like Mozart, was composing very easily. And because he had such ease in composition, he was able to map out an architecture very quickly, but also very convincingly. Like, he didn't have to go through, you know, tons and tons of sketches to arrive at something, and then it was all clunky. Everything, he has a musical smoothness to him that I think that I can't think of any other composer does. You can't see the seams. You can't see where the things are put together because it's seamless, which is even more incredible when you think sometimes he would take an entire opera and he would just change the words of something and it would become a completely different opera. Like he was really in tune about like this music fits this dramatic situation, and yet it's exact, yet it's malleable. So for the example I use is, the overture to Barbieri's di Siviglia, which everybody knows. Everybody knows that music is the overture to Barbieri di Siviglia. But it was the third time he had used that overture. The first time was when he wrote Aureliano in Palmira for Milano. And that overture has elements that come in that opera later on. And then he went to Naples and he wrote Elisabetta Regina d'Inghilterra. And he sort of beefed up the orchestration a bit and didn't have a great success with that. And then he finally got to Rome and he was doing Barbieri di Siviglia. He didn't have time to write an overture and he wrote that, or he just used that. And that in every way is, nobody hears that overture and goes, oh, Aureliano in Palmira or Elisabetta Regina d'Inghilterra. You hear that and you go Barbieri di Siviglia because it perfectly fits in the same way that the Count's aria at the end of Barbieri di Siviglia was first used in Barber, and then it was used in a cantata that he wrote, and then he reused it for Non più mesta in Cenerentola, and it makes the most sense in Cenerentola.
He was smart. He was a good businessman.
Very smart, extremely smart.
Oh my God, what an incredible person. So basically, he was able to map out the entire piece.
Yes, very quickly.
And like Mozart did in a way, but Mozart kind of had the whole thing, not just the map. Everything was already in there. It was just.
I think with Rossini, it was very much what too. I think it was just different kinds of things. But yeah, there's only a couple of operas that he wrote that we have sketches of because he didn't need to sketch. He just went, whoop, he got the libretto and and then what the big difference is once you get to Verdi has a very strong hand in his librettos. He tells his librettists, you need to change this. This is not the right word here. Yeah. Rossini just wrote whatever they gave him.
That's right.
So when he had a great librettist, like Sterabini is sort of, he's kind of a bad librettist that wrote one good libretto. But when he had like a great librettist, he actually wrote great operas. And when he had like a subpar librettist, he still wrote amazing music. Yeah,
that's right. So I know that you are not a big fan of cuts, right?
No, I'm not a big fan of cutting. I'm not a big fan of lazy cuts.
Yeah, I understand. To me, just because a section repeats, that is no reason to cut it.
Okay? Exactly. Because especially with Rossini, because you lose the propulsion. It's like
the momentum. Yeah.
And the momentum. Absolutely. Right. I would rather cut an entire number. Yeah. Than cut. They make these little snips like 4 bars here. I mean, I hate that stuff.
Yeah.
I hate that.
So should we worry about not cutting his music because we want to be as urtext as possible? And we want to be kosher about Rossini, while at the same time, it seems like he didn't care much.
He really didn't. It's a strange dilemma. I mean, so like our first show is L'Italiani in Algeri, and I'm really interested in not just doing all the notes, but doing the notes that he cared about the most. So, for example, there's an aria in the second act for Ali that he didn't write. He had an assistant write it. So I don't consider that music that is really important. Mm-hmm. In the same way, he rewrote another aria for the tenor that we included in a very difficult aria, not just difficult for the tenor, but also like a little mini clarinet concerto in the middle of the aria. And so we included that because he wrote it for a later version of a later production in Rome, I believe, of L'Italiana. So some things have to be cut. Like William Tell we never meant all 80,000 pages of that to be played. In fact, it was never all played. Uh-huh. Even he wrote it all. They were getting towards the premiere. They said, we got to make cuts. They made huge cuts. It premiered. They said it's too long. They made more cuts. They just kept cutting it and cutting it and cutting it. But what I don't like are what I call lazy cuts, like just little cuts because the singer, I don't want to, I don't want to repeat that.
Or I've never done it before.
I've never done it before. Yeah. I think that I would rather, and especially in the comic operas, I would rather cut within the recits because he didn't write the recits.
Exactly.
And I would rather, especially in the finales, keep everything because there's such an architecture. There's such a wonderful architecture. And if you take it out, it's like randomly taking bricks out of a building. It's
exactly. Isn't there so much Mozart's influence in the finales? I mean, it's absolutely music. There's no recits. And it keeps on building not only the number of voices, but also the momentum keeps on building until you get to the punchline.
Yeah.
At the end.
The first act finale of Barbara is so similar in some ways to the Figaro. Yeah. I mean, you start with 2 people, then you get 3, then you get 4, and it just becomes
so
good. And the situation keeps changing and keeps getting funnier. Like people talk about like comic opera or like a, like, I don't know, so many comic operas are just not funny. Like with Rossini, what's really the music is what's very funny. I mean, you think of an aria like La Calunnia, and not only does it make sense musically, but like you have a Rossini crescendo that is happening slowly throughout the entire piece.
That's right.
But he's also talking about something getting bigger and larger and becoming out of control. And then you bring in the percussion, you have the canone. So it's a real wedding of the musical idea and the structural idea and the textual idea at the same time.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Frasier, the show? I mean,
I was a fan of Cheers when I was a kid. I think I've seen a couple episodes of it. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. No, I don't.
I am a huge fan.
Okay.
I think it's one of the greatest shows on TV.
Frasier. Okay.
It's so good, and the reason is because it's very, very operatic in its structure, and there's a couple of episodes that are so opera finale like, Rossini finale like, with a punchline at the end.
And you think this is conscious, right? You think this is on purpose?
Oh, absolutely. And there's a few episodes like that, but the one that I'm thinking of is called The Cabin.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Please look it up. Watch the whole episode. It's not that long. It's 22 minutes.
21 minutes, yeah. They're all.
So it keeps them being. This person thinks that this person is going after them, but actually this person is going after someone else. And this person thinks that he is gay, but he is not gay because he actually liked this other person. So he goes to his room. He's not there. So he goes to another room and somebody else is there. So he keeps on building and building and building until there's a huge laugh at the end, a huge punchline. It's so good. It's so good.
Oh, wow. All right.
You have to see it. Just try to put your opera glasses on and see it in that capacity. It's so good, so good. I digress, but for a very good reason. Very big fan of Frasier here. Very big fan. What's your favorite number in Barbiere? I mean, there's so much. There is so much. It's not a fair question. I understand.
I mean, barring the finale, I would say the trio, but only if it's uncut, because there's a wonderful set of melismas towards the end before they get to the but when the Count and Rosina,
It's so good.
It's so good, and Rosina and the counter, and then Figaro joins in mocking them. It's just this section almost always gets cut. But I think, for my money, I would say the trio.
Wow, I'm just when you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've done Barbara I think 5 times now. It was one of the first operas I ever saw. It was one of the first operas I ever conducted. And I've never done it uncut, and I've never done it with the tenor aria at the end. And I wish now I won't do it again unless I can do that, because 2 summers ago I went to the Rossini Festival in Pesaro, and they don't make any cuts. They don't make any cuts in anything. And so if the evening is 5 hours, the evening's 5 hours. And so they did a Barbiere without cuts, and it was a revelation to me. All this recipe that's normally cut, all of a sudden things make sense, especially at the end when Don Bartolo, or when the Count is singing to Bartolo, "Cesso di più resistere." He kind of goes through like the whole reasoning of it, and Bartolo is made more human. He's not just a punchline at the very end. He actually gives his blessing to the Count and Rosina, and it makes it a much more interesting story. And then you really do see why this operates. You know, they say he originally didn't title it Barbiere Civile. He called it Alma Viva because he didn't want to offend Paisiello. But Alma Viva is really the most important character because he has this gigantic aria at the end. It's a true scena with a recitative, and he's the only one that has like the accompanied recitative in his aria, and then he has the cantabile, and then he has a cabaletta. Same way with at the end of Cenerentola. So he really is the title character if you put this aria in for him. If you don't, all he gets is this little eco ridente, which is not even an aria. It's just a part of the introduction. It's like it's embedded in the introduction, and then he gets this little guitar thing, which is not much. So if you don't give him this aria, he really is not the title character anymore.
Yeah. Do you think that Barbiere, that Rossini performed it fully with no cuts?
I think probably on the opening night, yeah, they did. I'm pretty sure they did. And then, the opening night was famously a disaster. And then I think cuts are probably introduced relatively early, as with most of these things. But I also think that the audiences were used to it having a longer evening in front of them.
That's right. Well, they used to drink and eat and talk to one another and go in the lobby and chat a little bit. So I mean,
the whole idea of a comic opera came by because in Naples they were writing these gigantic opera serie, and then in between the acts of the opera serie they would write these little intermezzi, and that's how you get like something like Serva Padrona. You get it came out of this tradition of it being these little morsels that came in between the acts of giant operas.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also partly why opera lasted so much. It's not just artistic, but it's pure entertainment, and make a half a day out of your experience.
The only way we do that now is if we see Wagner. Like if you go to see like Götterdämmerung, it's that's an evening. There's a dinner break.
Yeah, but then you can't talk to each other. You can't take pictures. You can't chit chat or eat a sandwich. Gamble, exactly.
I wish they would bring that. That is like, if someone asked me how could we save opera in America, I'd say bring back gambling tables.
You know how many years I've been trying. I
mean, it would opera would fund itself at that point.
That's right. Yeah. You can actually have a for-profit organization.
Yeah.
And forget about this nonprofit business. You don't have to ask for donations.
No,
exactly.
You don't have to go with your hand out all the time. I mean, if you had blackjack tables, I mean, forget it. You'd make a ton of money.
That's right. Bellini, Donizetti, Rossini,
yes.
Bel canto.
Yes.
And then parallel to that, I'm going to be mild in my opinion here. What I don't like very much is the high note at the end of arias, especially in Rossini. Okay, I need your opinion here.
You know who else didn't like that? Rossini.
Oh, he didn't?
So like there's the big tenor aria in Guillaume Tell, Asile Héréditaire. Now it ends with a big high C at the end. Ozar, it goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. And the original guy didn't do that. He just sang like a regular C. And then as the piece became famous a couple of years later, this tenor Duplay, who was a very famous tenor, actually went on to premiere the tenor role in Lucia di Lammermoor. He was the first one to sing this full-throated high C at the end. And Rossini just hated it. It sounded like a castrated bird. Like he really, and so high C, when he would write a high C, it was never meant to be sung the way we sing high C's now. It was like, it was more falsetto. And he didn't write them at the end of arias. Like usually it's the penultimate note that's the high note. But yeah, Rossini was not a fan of ending arias on high notes, especially for.
I mean, especially in Rossini, it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work musically. It doesn't work with my soul and what my soul wants to enjoy at that point, because I think that bel canto has nothing to do with that. Bel canto translated as beautiful singing or beautiful, beautiful singing, basically.
Yeah. It doesn't translate to like beautiful pissing contest. It doesn't like.
Yeah, exactly. And the beautiful thinking, the beautiful singing has nothing to do with how long you can hold one note, but it has to do with everything else in that audience.
Everything else.
That's right.
Everything. That's so one of my biggest pet peeves, and I talk about this all the time, is in the cadential measures at the end of arias. You know, da 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 da.
Yeah.
A lot of times singers just pause there because they're gearing up for their high note.
Yeah.
And I hate that more than just almost anything. That's probably my number one bel canto pet peeve. Simply because there's no evidence that singers at the time would have paused there. And the only reason you're pausing there is because that's how you've heard on a recording, or that's how a singer you like does it. And you're trying to gear up for a crappy high note that you don't even really have. And if you blow that high note, that's all anyone is going to remember. It doesn't matter that you just nailed everything else before it. It's so lazy to wait out those cadential measures. By that time, if you've done great, they're going to applaud, you know. And having those cadential measures, da 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 da, it builds the excitement to the very end, and then the orchestra will take over. And then you shouldn't have to work the hardest at the very end.
That's right.
And he wrote it in such a way where you don't. Yeah,
while you worked so hard to get there, because there are so many ornaments, so many improvisations.
Yeah.
And arias are long. Some of them are like 5 or 6 minutes long. And it's
absolutely
just you singing, just for one note. And actually the momentum at the end will help with clapping. People are just going to be there waiting to clap. But if you stop that energy, then it's, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So I understand why it's done in Puccini, even though Puccini didn't particularly like it himself. But he set it up for it.
Yeah.
But Rossini, I just can't do it. I can't do it. Yeah. Bel canto. Anyway, earlier you were talking about, what's the running joke? You were talking about Rossini using sections of his operas here and there all the time.
Yeah.
And Beethoven wrote one opera, right? So the joke is Rossini wrote what he wrote
10 operas with 1 overtures. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Beethoven wrote 1 opera with 5. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
That's very funny. That's very funny. I'm not a particular fan of Fidelio, but that's for another.
I mean, there's some great music in Fidelio.
And
he just wasn't. He wasn't made for the theater.
That's right. It takes a theater person, a person that understands theaters, and it's not just about music, and it's not just about story, but like everything in life is about timing. And I do have a theory that timing is the secret of life.
Yeah, I think that's it's definitely the secret of opera.
Time for anything that you do in life, in relationships or cooking or
cooking.
Timing is essential.
Formula One driving.
Today, right? You told me, right? It starts today?
Well, it's in practice. They're doing practice.
Oh, practice. Yeah. Where?
In Austria. And Francesco Migliotto should know that actually Mercedes is beating Ferrari today. So he's gonna be so pissed.
Don't. You're hurting me a little bit. You're hurting me a little. Are you really a Mercedes?
I'm not a fan of teams so much as I'm a fan of people. And Lewis Hamilton, I love. I think he's if Lewis Hamilton, drove for, Honda or Buick, like Ford, like I don't care, wherever he drives, I'll be a fan of them.
Oh goodness! Listen, a couple more things. I like talking to you. So, difficult question. Top 3 operas in order. Rossini. We are talking Rossini. Top 3 operas in order, and top 3 overtures in order.
Oof. All right, top 3 operas are easy. It's Guillaume Tell, Le Conte Henri, And then it does get difficult. And Tancredi.
Oh, Tancredi. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Overtures.
Overtures. Oh, Guillaume Tell for sure. That's tougher. Oh, Signor Bruschino.
Oh, it's so good, that one.
So good. And then probably L'Italiana.
Yeah, that's another excellent one. I did it a few times actually. In like 2 open concerts, like symphonic concerts.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
So these are perfect. And actually, Signor Bruschino, back in Italy, I had like my first stereo and my first CD player with a first CD, and that was the first CD ever that I have played.
Signor Bruschino, really?
Signor Bruschino. I just had a thing lying there, and it said, "Oh, someday I'm going to be able to use this with a stereo," which I don't have yet. And I was looking at it because LPs had the little, call them in English, grooves.
Grooves, yeah.
Grooves, and I couldn't see any in the CD. So I was waiting for the machine that could actually do something with this. So fun days. Oh my God, there's so much to say. Otello, you did the Otello.
Yeah, you did the Otello with us too, right? You didn't.
I didn't. But please tell everybody. I mean, it's an opera. That
no, because you did the Bohème after that.
That's right.
Or no, sorry, the Suor Angelica.
No, Suor Angelica was before the Otello, wasn't it?
Now I can't. No. But yeah, yes. So it was Otello, and I think then it was.
It was the Bohème.
No, it was that season was Otello, then Butterfly, and the next season was Amleto, and then Bohème. So you did the Bohème.
I did the Bohème. Yeah.
You did so the year that we did Barbieri and Suor Angelica, you did some of the rehearsals of the Suor Angelica and the Gianni Schicchi.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, we did the Otello. We did the first performance in America in over 20 years of the Rossini Otello.
In fact, I wanted to talk about that. I mean, it's an opera with like 16,000 tenors in it.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, you need 4 tenors. You need 4. You need 5, and you could do it with 4. One, because one of them's an offstage part that he could sing. Someone else could sing.
So I go to every music lover, not musicians, but just people that really know music and opera, and they've been hearing it since they were little. And there are 2 things of Rossini that they love. One is his Stabat Mater, which I did, and it was
just incredible.
Speechless.
Yeah.
And second is the Otello. And these are 2 pieces that, let's say, the general audience don't know so well because they are not performed. That's why.
Yeah. But in his time, his Otello was hugely famous until the Verdi Otello came out. It was famous for like a half century. Everybody did it. Every major tenor, every major soprano. It was huge. And if you look at it structurally, Boito pretty much stole the structure of the last act from the last act of the Rossini one. The first 2 acts of the Rossini are not like the Shakespeare very much, but that's not necessarily the fault of his librettist. It's the fault of the fact that the libretto. So like there were no good translations of Shakespeare in Italian. There were like French translations that were translated then into Italian. And this was a French adaptation of the English that was then made into a play in French, and then was then translated into Italian. So it was many layers removed from Shakespeare. But by the time you get to the last act, it's very much the Shakespeare. And it's so weird because it's the first, serious operas very rarely end in this period with the death of anybody. It's just something, that the bad guy gets caught and then everybody celebrates that. Serious operas did not mean tragic operas. But with Otello, this was one of the very first operas where, there's a murder on stage. And in the Shakespeare, he's supposed to smother her with a pillow. But the censors considered that was too violent. And so they said he has to stab her instead.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I see why. I see.
And it was so controversial that when he did a production of it in Rome, because it was written for Naples, when he did it in Rome, they thought that even that was too much, and he had to write a happy ending for it, where like they're arguing, he's about to kill her, and she says, no, I'm innocent, and then he realizes that she's innocent. And when we did it in Albuquerque, we did both the endings.
Oh, I remember. Didn't you make the audience choose?
Well, yeah, on the opening night we just did both of the.
Oh, I see.
We did both of the endings, and then after that we had the audience vote on it, and then the idea being that if you didn't know what was going to happen at the end, and if you were you'd be more emotionally invested, especially if you had some influence on the outcome. And so at the end of between the second and third act, the stage manager, they would count up all the votes, and they would tell me, they would tell the cast, and they would tell the super titles operator, and I would tell the orchestra, but nobody in the house knew. It was crazy. It was really crazy. Yeah. I'm scheduled to do it again at Florida Grand Opera in January and February. Hopefully it'll go forward, but we're going to do a similar thing there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Being emotionally invested in something that's what opera is all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's so special about this opera? Because I want people to listen to it. Do you have a recording of it, Opera Southwest?
Yeah, it's not commercially available.
Okay.
I can send it to you though. I think it's his first through composed opera, right? All the recits are composed. There's no secco recit, right? Mm-hmm. It's also the first tragic ending that he wrote, and I think that it wasn't his first Naples opera, but it was really one of the first big ones. It was immediately famous, and it was just huge, and it was done. And yeah, it's so hard to do because you need so many tenors, but you need three different kinds of tenors. Otello himself is almost, I don't want to say a baritone, but definitely more. It's not about the high notes as much. You need a meatier sound. The Iago is a much lower tenor. Uh-huh. And then the Roderigo is the one that's really tough. The Roderigo has maybe the most difficult Rossini aria ever written. I mean, it's just unbelievably difficult. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. And then I just think there's such a nice combination. You have tenor duets. You have all kinds of really crazy fireworks going on between the two tenors, between Roderigo and Otello and Iago. And then so the first two acts are very much like a Rossini opera. And then if you just drop the needle on a record of the third act, and I do this all the time, and you play like the Willow song, and you say, who is this? Nobody would guess Rossini. They'd say maybe Donizetti or Early Verdi. It is so dark and melancholy. And she has her Ave Maria, and she has the Willow song, and then you have this dark section where it's just like the strings rumbling underneath, and off stage you hear a gondolier singing this part of Dante's Inferno. It's a completely different magical world that you would never think of. But in Rossini's lifetime, he was not known as a comic opera composer. He was known as more of a serious opera composer. Like Cenerentola was the last comic opera he wrote for Italy. And then he didn't. The only other comic operas he wrote were Viaggio al Rhin, which was written in France at the end of his career, and then Count d'Ori, which was just a reworking of that opera. So pretty much by Cenerentola, he was done with comic operas, and he just wrote more and more and more serious operas, and that's what he was famous for. And now, unfortunately, today we know him mostly as a comic opera writer, but his serious operas are even better, I think.
And why is that, you think?
I think the success of Barber Seville has been so thorough and so all-encompassing that it's blinded us to everything else. And also, I think our contemporary sensibility of what a tragic opera should be, it's more like Puccini or Verdi, very full-throated. And with Rossini, his conception of serious opera is a little bit more in line with classical, like Mozart, like Idomeneo or something like that. So it doesn't have the kind of blood and guts that a Donizetti or a Verdi would have. So I think it's just there's a little bit of a disconnect between what we think serious music or tragic opera should sound like and what it sounded like to his audience.
Yeah. And maybe that's why probably people don't know these pieces, including the Stabat Mater, because again, drop the needle. this is not Rossini.
No.
Right? You can't tell who it is.
There's not a bar of William Tell that sounds like the Rossini of Barber Seville. I mean, there's not a note. And it's constant. You know, towards the end of his career, he was just doing so much experimental stuff, and then he stopped composing operas, and then he wrote the Stabat Mater, and then if he had kept composing operas, it would have been unbelievable. You know, he did write a lot of music. In fact, the majority of the music that he wrote after William Tell. It was all songs and piano pieces and little chamber things.
Yeah.
But, you know, he never stopped thinking, and he never stopped being interested in what was going on. I think he just saw music going in a direction that he didn't really care for.
Yeah. Difference between Rossini, Donizetti, and Bellini. Your opinion? It's
tough because I've done Semiramide and I've done Norma, and they are structurally so similar, even down to the way that he does duets and things like that. And so William Tell, Rossini's final opera, was written 1829. Norma was written 2 years later. You know, and so there's not to me, William Tell sounds more advanced than Norma, like as far as harmonically, as far as orchestration. In fact, to me, Norma sounds like an earlier Rossini opera. So I think that, you know, Rossini kind of went further than everybody else, and then Donizetti and Bellini and Verdi had to, you know, play catch up and then kind of get past where he was.
Yeah. If I'm staring at you, it's because I'm hearing music. I'm seeing people sing. I'm just, there's so much going on right now. It's just notes, harmonies. So it's not that I'm not listening. It's just there's so much in there right now. So it's difficult. How old?
What about you? What about you? Top three Rossini operas and top three overtures.
So I haven't done as much Rossini as you did.
Sure.
You being the expert of Gioacchino. For me, it would be a tough one because I would really like to. I would include the Stabat Mater in one of his operas.
Yeah, it's great.
So I'm gonna have to go with. God, I wasn't ready. I'm gonna have to go because there's also Cenerentola, which is incredible.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Stabat Mater.
Okay.
Cenerentola and Barbiere.
Wonderful. It's fantastic.
Overture. Semiramide.
Ooh, yes.
Semiramide. This is so difficult.
So good.
Semiramide. Oh,
La Gazzaladra.
La Gazzaladra.
Oh, that's a phenomenal. Yeah.
Gazzaladra and.
Oh, that's such a good. I should have said that one. Yeah.
And Italiano.
Oh.
Those are my three.
So good.
Yeah, and the Semiramide has a very difficult, incredibly beautiful horn choir.
Oh, and that's in the opera in the very beginning too. Like it's this, they sing that kind of a cappella in this wonderful thing.
It's actually an excerpt for people when they audition for orchestra.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I have chills just thinking about music right now. I haven't done it for such a long time, like anything, right? That it seems so far away right now.
I know it does.
How old, if you know, how old was he when he composed Otello? Since you know all dates and everything like that.
I think I like 22. I mean, it was he wrote it right before Cenerentola. So I want to say 22, 23.
So what's up with these 20-year-olds, early 20-year-olds? They're able to. Another one like this was Michelangelo, right? So he did the Pietà for when he was, I think, about that age, about 21 years old, and and he gave it to, when you donate your work of art to the Vatican, you're not supposed to sign it.
Right.
Because you have to be humble about it. So there's no, we think that this person did that. So he donated to the Vatican, and he was listening to people talk about it, saying, no, this can't be Michelangelo. A 21-year-old can't do something like this. And he was so angry because it was him that in the middle of the night, he went there with his little tools, and on her veste, he wrote Michelangelo Buonarroti.
Bronzi.
So what's up with these 21, 22-year-olds that maybe don't know anything about life, but maybe at that time they did? It seems like they knew so much.
Well, they didn't live as long, for one thing. Two, I don't know. I don't think 20 is that young. Like, I think, he started doing this when he was very, very, very young. He was like, in the conservatory when he was like, really young, and he wrote his first opera when he was like 14. So, and his mom was a singer, and his dad was a trumpet player. So he was in the theater from a very early age, and he just got a lot of practice. And there are very few examples of someone like Verdi who really got better at the end. I mean,
Verdi is the apice example,
right?
Climax example of someone's journey from.
If he had died after Hernani, we would maybe do Nabucco, maybe. We wouldn't have Traviata, Rigoletto, and then if he had died after, the Traviata, Rigoletto, and Trovatore, we wouldn't have Aida, we wouldn't have Don Carlos, we wouldn't have, So, and I think that's the more rare example of the composers getting more really mature. Like him, Verdi and Monteverdi are, for me, are the two examples of composers that really got better as they went along. Rossini, I mean, Mozart, a lot of them just died. Donizetti wrote 70-something operas, and he was in his 30s or something, and if he had just kept, thank God he died. Like, can you imagine how many operas we'd have to listen to now? Right. And Bellini too died, I think, in his
I think he was 31 or something like that.
Yeah. Pergolesi, poor guy, was Pergolesi, 26, I think. 26. He probably wrote the greatest comic opera of all time. He was 20. He died when he was 26.
It's incredible. Wow. Yeah. So last question. He retired when he was 36 years old.
35, 36, yeah. Retired from opera composition.
But we know him as an opera composer, right?
Sure.
I mean, is it safe to say that he composed the rest for fun?
I mean, I don't know, how fun is the Stabat Mater?
No, but it's true. But he composed it for himself. It's not that.
These were not commissions. No, right.
So I would have loved to retire at 36 and go to Paris and just eat. So what would you have done if you could have retired at 36?
Well, it wasn't that easy. I mean, he was very clearly bipolar. He suffered from serious depression. Absolutely. He had
that I didn't know.
He had horrible gonorrhea like most of his life. There was a year of his life where he had to, like, I don't want to get too involved in it, but he had to like do these things with his penis that were like torture daily. Because it was awful. He had these infection after infection, and they tried to clean it out, and they tried to have surgery. And this is all before anesthetics. It was all before penicillin. So he lived a miserable, black, dark, like 7 or something years after he retired. And then he got a new wife, and he kind of got out of his funk. But he was in a bad place for many of those years. And then he kind of. So the question is, what would I do if I could retire?
No, forget it now. Forget it. I mean,
right. Yeah.
After this, I had no idea.
Oh yeah, and I'll send you some stuff that'll make your toe hairs curl. It's just horrifying.
Poor joke.
But if I could retire from music, I would.
Yeah, and at 36, where would you go? Would you stay in Chicago? Come on.
Yeah, probably. And I would try to race cars professionally.
Well, which one is where do you risk your life more, by driving cars professionally or being a conductor?
Driving cars. I don't know. I mean, I guess
what we do is pretty risky. What we do is pretty risky.
Sinopoli died, and there's someone else died doing it, but
no, but it's a fairly stressful. It's
stressful, but you're not gonna die a violent death.
I know, that's true. Yeah, Sinopoli, poor guy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of deaths over La Forza del Destino. In fact, when my dad was singing it, always he would hold what's that? Il coso di cavallo, il piede di cavallo, il metallo, come si dice?
Oh, the horseshoe.
A horseshoe behind his back, especially concerts, just for good luck. In fact, nothing happened every time he sang it.
Wow.
So, Italians, what can I say?
So who's next month? This is Rossini.
But we still have to decide.
Check. Not Puccini.
Well, we kind of want to expand. We don't want to do the usual guys.
What do you do, like Gounod?
No, I don't know. But obviously Puccini's out there. We were supposed to do Carmen, that was canceled.
Oh yeah.
I would love to.
Bizet is oh my God, such a great composer.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a ton of Italians, of course. Obviously, I'm more connected to Italian opera than any other. Not super French myself, as far as my likings. I think it's I don't know, maybe it's a culture.
You don't like Messiaen, really?
No, but there's opera here, opera there, but it just in general. In general.
What about Russian opera though?
Yeah, that's beautiful too, and we need to do some Russian composers. So we kind of want to present more composers to our audience than just the usual Verdi, Puccini, Rossini, and basta.
Basta, yeah, that makes sense.
So anyway, it was lovely to see you again, and thanks so much for being here with us with all your knowledge. I'm sure that people are enjoying it as much as I did. So we really appreciate it. Be safe.
You too, Maestro.
And we will talk very soon.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.